Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be a bit different because we will start our journey with Katana. Katana is a look depth and lighting tool and I will be using Arnold with that. So this series, this KtoA series, will continue on the previous 201 series for M2A material series. So just that you know, this K2A one will start at 206, which will continue in the material series, right? So the last one was 205. Instead of M2A, it's now K2A. So just that you guys follow along, this will be a material series tutorial, but this time in Katana, right? So what that means is I won't really go into how I set this template up or everything. This will just be shading. So most of the time I will be in this look depth section here where I have all these shaders in place. And but just a quick overview. In the top, I get my files, my data in Alembic cameras, test cameras. In here is my material assignments. Down here is my lights, my scene lights using a gaffer. And then I've got my special Skydome script to actually connect a texture to the Skydome shader. Currently, it's a bit finicky to get that working, but this is how the setup is. So you write out in KLF and load it back in here, and that's how it's done. And then I've got my Arnold render globals, which are the equivalent to Maya's render settings. So you've got all the sample stuff in here. I've got my AOV creation right there. Interactive outputs are here with all my AOVs. So my current setup looks like this. And I've got these AOVs right here, diffuse albedo, and all the other fancy stuff, right? And this is my default settings. And then I have also set up quite a few interactive render filters. So guys which are familiar with that, it's a pretty it's, you guys will know, it's like settings. The guys who are not familiar with that, it's like a temporary render settings for your work, like your interactive work. But when you are like batch rendering, these interactive folders are totally ignored. So to give you an understanding, I show you what I have in my interactive filters. So for instance, I have a lower render resolution. I've got progressive off, which means there is no, you don't see the progressive updates. It's just a final render step. Then I will render from test cameras. My bucket size is reduced, and my maximum AA samples is 2. So the cool thing about this, I can set up my final render settings, which I actually did already. So AA is 5, which is the max, which is maybe I will go up to 6. I don't know. And then I've got 2 diffuse, 2 specs, and 5 spec bounces, and 2 diffuse bounces. And these settings are, I mostly won't touch them because all I'm changing here is the AA sample. So when I remove this guy, I will get my my 6 AA samples. But if I enable this in my interactive session, like 2, this is actually overridden before the first pixel starts by these settings here. So which is very convenient to use. Yeah, and then I've got my look dev group, and in here, if I control middle click, it opens that group up. And here are all my shaders, right? So I have split up my node graph. I've got the home view is the first node graph here, and the second one is actually inside that look dev tree. So I did a few previous tests like car paint shader, fine dust shader, and this will be the KtoA 206. Let's just add this here as well. KtoA 206, just that I know for the future that this is what it is. And that's the cool thing about Katana. It's very modular. You can just reconnect stuff and you get the updated, like you get a new shader. So for instance, here are my surface shaders, and this is my shading engine at the bottom. And then all these outputs, they just connect to my shading engine, and that's what's being rendered. So for instance, if I want to render the fine dust, I just take the output and connect that to my shading engine. Control P for render start, and we should be ready to start. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So I've currently have KtoA samples, half res, progressive off, and I'm rendering from my test camera. So this is now my simple dust shader, right? So nothing too fancy. And yeah, so this is how it's working. And for this tutorial, I will be setting up a rather simple shader, but this is just to get you into Katana and see all of the glory of that. So I've got a painted metal sphere, and you can see what's going on. It's very bumpy. It got some scratches. I'm not sure if I will be doing those because I don't have a procedural for that, and it's pretty tricky to set one up. But you can see there is also some metal which shines through, so the paint has been chipped off or something. But overall, it's very reflective, right? So the first thing what I want to set up is the base, the black paint, I would guess. So you can see here's my reflection, and you can see there's a pretty good amount of noise bump on it. So let's just keep that in mind and start the interactive session. So let's just reconnect those outputs. Out goes here, so that's connected. And this is now my typical render shader, right? You've got your diffuse colors, your specs and all that. So let's see how that looks. I'm saving the scene, Control S, and I am starting a live session right now. Right click, live render, and now we should get a like an Arnold render view live session. So if I change values, they update right in Katana. So oh, I got actually progressive off, so this needs to be adjusted. So let's just try this again before it's starting. Live render. And now I have interactive on, so which means I'll see the progression steps. And all in all, it's not as fast or interactive as in Maya's Arnold render view because the translation of the nodes, but once it's loaded up, you can actually see it. It's still pretty good. So this is now my 1:1 scale. And if I change values now, okay, before I forget that, the interactive only works if you actually specify the shaders for that. So in the scene graph, which is the outliner, you need to enable interactive renders for your materials. So for now, I just shift click here. So all materials are enabled for live rendering, and then you need to also do the same on the object. So in this case, I will just do my whole geo group and enable everything for that as well. And also for my test camera. Okay, so now it's actually updated the camera now, but it shouldn't do that. So now you can see the live stuff is working, right? So I just want to start the session again because I'm actually rendering through my test camera. So let's do this one more time, and now we should be interactive. So the first thing what I want to do is dial in the color and the specularity. I will be using the coat, like a default base, black base color, and then I use a coat, and then I do a normal on top of the coat, right? That's the idea here. Okay, so this has been started. So let's just dial in the color. So my base, I want to keep that at 1. So I will just work with the base color, clicking here. And now I will be just reducing the hue saturation, so a very low value. You can also render regions. If you shift right click drag, you just render a region and you get an even faster feedback, right? So HSV, so let's dial this down a bit more. Check the reference image, so you can right click here, F and B, and then you can press S, I think. Yeah, S is switching between those. So you can see it's actually pretty dark, like there is almost no color in the values. So let's try that as well. A very low, let's just do 1 here. So this is almost pitch black. And for now, let's just disable the specs. So we are just concentrating on the base. Okay, so it's totally black, which is what I kind of want. Okay. And we might introduce just a few color alterations. I think that's the first thing we should do right now. So in my node graph, I will create, if I press Alt O, that's something I actually implemented. I get all my shaders in a drop-down menu, because if you don't have that, what you need to do is create an ASN, Arnold shading node, like this. Create that guy, go into the settings, and choose the node you want to work with. So for instance, I want to use the AI noise and work with that, right? So this is how you guys would create that if you don't have this little bit of technical thing enabled. And I will do a separate tutorial on that, how to set this up as well. So, but for now, I will be using the shortcut. If you want to create those nodes, you would create the ASN and then choose the shader, right? So I'm just pressing Alt O, and then I'm going to create a noise, which is here. And then I want to create, connect the output here to my base color, like so. And I want to, if you press dot, like period button, keyboard button, I create a dot here, like so, and then this will be my inputs for my base color. So I just disable this tick, so this is actually a proper node, and I can call this input and then base color. So I don't always need to do these like click and then choose to where it belongs to, right? So I can just connect any nodes to this guy, and I know the connection is correct. So in here, I've got now the colors, so I'm not sure if it did update. So that's something which is not working live, so you always need to start the session again. And then we should be good. So what I want to do now is create two, this like black and a gray color, just to get a bit differentiation between those values. It should be really subtle, nothing too crazy. So for now, this is my noise pattern. It might be actually a scale is pretty good. So let's just work on the value. So the first one was 0.001, I guess. That's the dark one. And then the other one will be slightly brighter. You see what we get here? And just for now, I'll make it a bit brighter. You can also check the diffuse albedo if it's better. See the raw color. And then we will introduce some detail, like 3 layers of that. And maybe some distortion, right? To add these swirls or whatever. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then we can try it too, maybe. It's a bit, yeah, now you see these nice swirls happening in the paint. So obviously the gray is way too bright, so let's bring that back down. I just want to create a really, really subtle effect, something like this. I guess it won't be even apparent when the coating is on top, but I just want to add a little bit difference to that. Okay, so now this guy is connected to this guy. And now let's look how the specularity works. So if I enable the spec layer, oh, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to work with coding, as I said before. So no spec, I will just introduce a coating like so. Let's make this just bigger. There we go. You can also use the specular. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to work with the code because it has a separate normal or something. There's no crazy reason for that. So this is now with no roughness, and you can see in the reference images actually that there is some roughness to it. You can see that the glints, they bloom out a bit, and the other one, you can see that there is like, I don't know, fingerprints or some splotches. So I will just introduce a subtle amount of roughness, and you can actually see the reflections are not 100% crisp. There is something going on there, right? So keep that in mind as well. And so for now, let's head back to this and introduce roughness again, maybe 0.2. That's way too much. 0.05. And I think I will add a noise pattern to this as well. And then, okay, let's first do that. Okay. And I'm rendering now through the test camera, right? This is not my final render camera. Just that you know that. And let's create the noise for the roughness, right? So we just copy paste this guy. And this one goes into the red channel. For this goes into my code roughness. You can actually search here, which is pretty cool as well. So code roughness, that's a connection. I create the dot here. Does that work now? Just create some up there, which is weird. Okay, so that's connected. So I just want to change the name again. So this is input code spec R. You don't need to do that. It's just something I picked up. You can actually just leave this connection and just connect it directly. Okay, so what we got here, this did not work. So do I have the albedo code direct? I don't have this. It doesn't matter. We'll see the result. So let's start the live again and check this guy. So this is currently the same as a diffuse color. So this will be very shiny. So I'll be just working with those values, and I guess I will change the scale too. Okay, what's going on here? Did that break? It looks like it's broken. So this guy out color goes in here. Let's just interesting. So this does not like it really much. So let's just do it one more time without this dot connection. Code roughness. Code roughness. Okay, let's try this again. Let's see if that works better. You see, the process takes a bit longer. Also, you don't have this isolate selected, which you have in Maya. So there are some limitations. Okay, something is going wrong here. I am not sure why. So this guy is my noise, and it goes to code roughness, right? That's connected to the red channel. So let's just see if I don't have this connection, if it works again. I bet it will. Yeah, that's super strange. So it doesn't like the connection in there. That's super weird. Okay, let's see. This is the noise. Out red. It's super strange. So it doesn't like that. Provides float, and this is interesting. We can just try it again one more time. Out red goes into the code roughness. And let's try for now to render this without live preview render. And if this doesn't work, we might just use a specular again. Yeah. Okay, that's something I need to flag with the guys. Okay. So let's try to use it in the other channel. So let's just remove this guy, and this one, the red goes this time to specular roughness. And therefore we need to disable these guys. You can actually see if there's something yellow in the attribute edit or in the parameters, the value has been changed from the default, which is very helpful sometimes. So default is 1. So now I've got the noise connected. So let's see if this works now. If I render the roughness from the specular, let's see if that works. Also not. So it might be that the noise is not supported, or I am doing something horribly wrong here. So let's just try to use a different node. So the noise out or does not like it. So I can try something else though, because I know this worked. If I use the range, what did I do here? Normal, normal. Okay, I never connected roughness before, so let's just try if I do this. Spec roughness. Range out. So this is now, but this is connecting a whole color. Anyways, you can see I'm also not sure what's going on. Let's just try this again. So this is now just input 0.2 and then going out again. But I have connected a color to the roughness, so I'm not sure how this will work now. It's very interesting. So that does work, surprisingly. One different test, and then we go with that. So if I just, instead of choosing the red channel, I connect the whole thing to the spec roughness, which also does work. So I'm not sure what's going on. Let's see, live. Okay, so that definitely does not work. So I think it might be the noise which does not output correctly. So let's do this instead and use a code again, code roughness. And this guy is disconnected, and let's just go back here, disable spec, enable the code. And this has the range now, so let's just test this. You see, this is how I debug, so it's maybe good for you to see how I work as well. So now it's updating again, and now if this works, I'll try to connect the noise into the range and see if that works. If that's fine, then we will go with that. Okay, so we get the roughness, which is fine, that's what I wanted. So if I connect the out to the range input, let's see if that still works. Live. So now we should get a shiny, pretty shiny render because the noise itself has almost no white values. Okay, doesn't like the noise pattern then. I'm not sure why. Unfortunately, we cannot use this. So what should we do instead? That's scalar. Okay, and what else do we have? We don't have, Arnold doesn't provide any other noises, which is a bit unfortunate. So let's just see if I have something else to work with. Let's just see what's in the ASN if we find something. We can use a cell noise. It's an OSL shader I did, which is not really helpful for now. Cell noise, that's the only one there is. So it works in this guy, but it doesn't work in the code. Why is that? It's super strange. It does work as a RGB, but it doesn't work as a float. So when I connect this here, super weird. And if I do this here, I think it will yield the same results. So this is now range out or connected to the painted. Render this. Maybe I actually get an output and see something which it doesn't like. Not really, it seems to be okay. I don't see an error or something. Nope. Okay, that sucks big time. So I cannot actually adjust the roughness. So let's just for now skip the roughness and just work with the normal. So and so I will not have anything connected to that. But I want to have this connected to the normal, right? So I think if I use a vector instead, or just a scalar and create a bump, bump 2D, which should get the map, float, height, RGB. So when I connect the RGB texture, in which case the first component R will be used. Okay, so bump height normal. So I could actually try this now and connect this to the map and out to the normal, code normal. So now we've got a height. Let's see if that works. So how did I do it on these guys? I think I just connect or also bump to the map was the red channel of the noise. So this did definitely work. And then it goes to the code normal. And this is what I'm doing here as well. Okay, it's very interesting. Again, it does not render. Oh man, I know. Sorry about that. That's the thing. I'm sorry. So if I'd actually checked the output, I would know the issue. The problem, if you duplicate a shader, the shader name does not get changed. Oh man, this was a waste of time. So this should actually be noise 2, and now we should be back into business, hopefully. So I'm sorry about this. Like, you can skip about that. Anyways. Okay, so okay, we are back in business. So you can see now that it is rendering. So for now, we will just disconnect the code normal. So if you want to duplicate nodes, make sure you change the name or just always create a new node and it will automatically update your numbers. Okay, so this guy connects to the range. The range red goes to the code roughness. There we go. So now we have that set up and I will start the session and we are good to go this time. Okay, so it is working finally. Sorry about that. Okay, anyways, let's continue. So going back to the noise, let's just work with the details here. We want to have a bigger pattern and increase the layers first. So we've got more detail and let's change the scale to be 0.2. 0.2 and 0.2. Bigger patterns right here. And then we have obviously the colors. So we can reduce this guy. So this is now super shiny. We can now slowly introduce some noise, some value to introduce some roughness. It's still very low, as you can see. And now something is happening. Let's bring that in a bit more. Okay, you can see there's now these blotches happening, and I also introduced some distortion, which just gives you this feel of pain or something is like has moved, like swirls or something. Okay. And now we want to also increase the default value, which is currently on 0. Let's just have a minimum value of 0.1. Okay, that's too much. 0.025, and this one goes maybe up to 2. So now we have a little bit of variation here. Yeah, I think that's okay. Currently you see it's I'm rendering pretty low res just to get faster feedback, but you can see there is no something going on the surface, right? And now the next thing we want to do is introduce the bump. And the bump should work with this guy. And I will create I will just reuse this noise and make sure that we have bigger values here. Something like this, 0.1. And this connects now to my code normal. Code normal. And let's start the session. So we can actually bring back this dot Does not like that. Anyways, never mind then. Live render. And now we should have the bump values applied as well. And now we can control the height, right? Okay. Yeah, way too strong, obviously. So let's just go down to 0.1. Okay, and now we need to check the reference. Let's do that. I think I have it still in here. So I'm pressing S to switch. And this is now the frequency. And it seems to be a bit bigger. You can see it's here, more or less. You can see the size. And it's nice and distorted, right? So let's just do that as well. First, go back here and change the scale. You can actually right click up here and you can jump between all those previous parameters, which is helpful. So let's just try 0.5 for the scale. Okay, so we have a bigger pattern. You can see now the effect is getting there definitely. Let's bring in a bit more detail for the levels. And let's go to the bump 2D and increase the size, the height. Okay, so this is now getting pretty close to what we would be getting here. You see that? Different resolution, so that's why it's jumping a bit. Okay, so this is now pretty close, I would say. You can see that, yeah, I think it's close enough. And now the next thing would be to work with the roughness a bit more. So let's see what we get. We can just change those values slightly just to see some updates. So let's go a bit rougher on certain values. Yeah, that's cool. Now you get this effect a bit stronger. Okay, so the next thing would be to introduce this metal, right? So this bare metal at the bottom. Is it here? Where is that actually now? I think I'm talking about this. So this chip paint, right? So let's just really rather quickly do that as well because I'm running out of time. So this is now my live session, okay? And let's for now, while I do that test, let's just render not a test cam render. Remove that and render for preview. And let's head over and create another network. So I'm creating a backdrop. Oh well, not another backdrop, but I will just extend this here, make this bigger. And now I will create another surface shader. This will be surface shader. This will be called AI metal. This could actually be this could be a rust shader as well, but for now I'll just create like an iron metal, a bit rusty, or just actually a bit darker iron values. So HSV, bring this guy down, something like this, and then base color. Where's specular? There we go. Metalness is 1. Roughness, yeah, that's okay. Okay, so this is that, and now we want to create a mix. Alt-O for me, you would create an ASN. And this guy is shader. So sometimes it doesn't have the input, so you first need to load the shader and the parameters, and then you get the option. Show shader 1, and this guy out is shader 2, and this guy out connects to this. So this is our mix shader, and for now I want to display shader mix value 1, which is shader 2, which is the metal, right? So creating a dot right here, just to keep things a bit organized. This is that, and then I will create another mask for the mix, right? So this is now my preview. camera, and let's see how it compares to the render. As so, I think it's hard to jump between things, but you get the idea that you get the bump map and everything. So I will be working now with the metal base, and then I want to create some dust on top and maybe some curvature things to break out the edges a bit, just a bit, so to make it a bit more interesting, right? Okay, so let's first see how the metal looks like. If I would run the live session now again, we should see just the metal, and I will also prepare a noise for now. Alt O to get a noise, and this guy goes into actually just a red, goes into the spec roughness, and this will control that. And now let's see what we have. So this is now my base metal. Right click here to go to the metal shader, and let's play around with those values a bit. Okay. Okay, so this will be a very simple metal. Obviously, I just want to show you how to mix stuff together quickly. So let's just start live again. Now we should have the noise connected as well. Save this guy. Okay, so the noise is connected. So let's work with that. So I guess this would be noise 3, noise 4. And let's give it detail, which isn't just the detail in the blends between color A and B. We want to distort this as well. Let's just try 2. Yeah. Okay, let's just make this bigger. And you could actually connect the bump map as well. So I'm not doing this now, but I'm just entering some manual values here quickly. And HSV goes up to, let's say, 0.4. And let's just render this side here. Okay. So this is now what we got. I think the distortion is too much for metal. Yeah, so this is just some color shifts, and we can use the same map. Let's just connect this as a bump, and let's increase the frequency to maybe 3, 3 and 3, just to get higher values in there as well. And let's just bring the first color a bit up. Anyways, okay. Going over here, let's just use also a bump to denote. AO, Alt O, bump. Come on. And this guy out connects to the bump map, red. Map, there we go. And this guy out connects to the normal specular, just to the normal, right? And then height goes down, and let's just render this. Oh, I clicked now preview. Let's just, if you hit escape, it cancels the operation. So I just started the live session quickly. Okay, so this is now what we got for the metal. And I think, yeah, it's not perfect metal, definitely not. There needs way more work on that, but this is now what we currently have. And now I will use the masking functions in the blend, in the mix shader in here to combine those maps together. So we will, for that to work, we will just move these guys over, and I will create another, I will create a curvature. I will create a curvature one time, and I will create another noise. And this guy will get a range shader connected. Range is like a remap, right? And the same for the other one. Okay, so this is one thing, this is another thing, and I will use a composite shader to plus them together. Okay, so let's just connect these guys up. EE just to load in all those attributes. So out goes into input, out goes into input, out goes into E, out goes into A, and this goes into B, and this out red goes into the mix shader mix, right? And now I just need to fine tune those values. So to do that, it's now hard to actually see what I'm doing. So what I can do now, instead of connecting this whole thing to the shader, I can actually connect this guy directly to the surface shader, and then I just get the flat color. Okay, I hope it does make sense. I will start this and you can see what I'm talking about. So now we should just see the output of this setup. It's similar to the isolate selected node. You just need to do the connections manually. Okay. So I think the default behavior for the composite is over. So this needs to be plus. So now we should see that. That's correct. So now we see the noise and the curvature together, right? So for now, I just want to work with the curvature, right? So I will go to the range and say output max is 0, so they don't get added together, and I just see the curvature, right? So now I will head over there and play with those values. So increasing the radius should give me more of the curvature, especially here in the bottom. And you can see what's going on there. So curvature, if I increase the multiply, I get stronger values for the edges, which is pretty cool. And not sure what all these values exactly do. I keep sliding and just see what's going on. Spread is really killing it. Okay, so now we get some hard edges around here and no one there. Okay, so this is now my curvature. I can multiply this on top with a noise to break up all those lines again. For now, let's leave it and just concentrate on the noise. So if I go here and output this to black and this back to 1, we should just see the noise. Okay, so, and the noise I want to have a bit bigger, let's say 0.1. And this one as well. Okay, I want to add detail, 5. Okay, this is getting somewhere, definitely. I want to bring in some distortion. Not that much. Okay, so let's see if I go to the range and I clamp those values, right? Okay. So now I'm creating these hard edges of noise patterns, which should resemble chipped off paint, right? And I want to introduce just more detail, and I need to see if I can actually do this with introducing more range in here. I think that's the correct one. Let's just try 10. Yeah, we got more detail, definitely. Let's try some other things here. And let's go back to the range. So I'm just changing the scale like up. So whatever is white should be metal showing through. So in the reference image, we don't have much metal, so this is why I try to reduce this amount quite a lot. Yeah, so now we slowly just fine-tuning, doing the look dev of it. Okay, introducing a bit more. Okay, so here's the sweet spot. Okay, so let's just use this for now as my blending map. And now head over to the here and bring in back this guy. So this is back to 1. So now we have them combined. You see that there's this edge detail now from the curvature together with the noise. And this is now my blend map. So whatever has a value of 1 will be shader 1, and a value of 0. No, sorry, a value of 1 will be shader 2, a value of 0 will be shader 1. So this guy goes in here. Shader 2 is my metal, which is a value of 1. So this should be correct. So if I connect this guy here and I start the render again, we should get the desired effect, hopefully. Yeah, and it works as expected. So now you can see that there is these metal pieces right here, and then there's the paint around it. Let's just render this part. And then you should be able to see what I'm talking about. You get these patches of metal shining through. And obviously you could create a bump map using this map, which I can actually do. Let's see. Mix shader. Actually, I'm not so sure. Does this support a bump? No, it does not. Interesting. Anyways, so this would be that. And now one last thing we can do is create a dust. So I have this, you've seen this in the beginning, a ambient occlusion with a simple dust shader, and then this is blending this together, right? So I can actually just use this, because this mix thingy here, if I just disconnect this, this is my dust layer. So whatever goes in here in the shader 1 slot will be the material, and then there is a dust going on top, right? So I can actually, instead of connecting this mix shader to my shading engine, I can connect this guy to my shading engine, which is now the dust and a missing shader. So then the mix shader from here, if you press 1, actually, you can select the output, and this one connects to the out of this connects to the shader 1. And now we should have dust as well introduced. So let's just render for final settings. So I will be disabling this guy. I will progressively turn it off, and yeah, this guy goes off as well. And let's just render for preview settings. So this is now the render result. You can see it's working out pretty nicely except the dust. So I definitely would have need to spend some more time on that. But you can see that this effect where you can see the metal through and then you see the paint on top is working pretty nice. And wherever the dust is, I should actually control the roughness as well of the other underlying layers. So for instance, the code direct needs to be roughened out wherever the dust mask happens. So I did not do that. So that's something you can try to make it look even better. And you can see the code looks pretty sweet. And then we have our diffuse albedo, which is our base colors. Then we've got the direct and we've got the spec direct as well. You can see wherever the direct hits is the metal flakes. and then this is the final result, right? So I hope you did like this KtoA series. I think I will be producing a bit more using Katana, and I will also produce some more technical stuff, how I created this template and the interactive filters and all that stuff. It's nothing too crazy, but if you're new to Katana, this is something you would need to it's something for you to learn, which is very helpful in that case. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you didn't like this session. I'm sorry for the long debug stuff. You can skip over that. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and see you in the next one. Cheers.